Bicycle, bicycle, bicycle. I want to ride my bicycle, bicycle, bicycle. I want to ride my bicycle.
We review today the Deluxe Combiner War figures Protectobot Groove. This figure has a long story in its arrival to the Combiner Wars line. In Generation 1, Groove was a motorcycle, and also the lower right leg of the Defensor Combiner. For the 2015 Combiner Wars Defensor, Hasbro ditched Groove as a deluxe-sized limb and replaced him with an assault vehicle named Rook. The assault vehicle scaled better next to the other deluxes, and Groove was reduced to legend size and became an accessory breastplate for Defensor. But many purist collectors were displeased by this. Takara Tomy respected the disgruntled collectors and made their own totally new deluxe figure as a motorcycle and Defensor limb. Once Hasbro saw how much money Takara was making, they bowed to the inevitable. And thus we have a domestically released version of Takara's slap in Hasbro's face with Deluxe Protectobot Groove. The box is slightly smaller since this one does not include a collectible comic book. Otherwise, it is very similar to the deluxe figure boxes from the Combiner Wars line, displaying the figure in front, along with the logo and the artist rendition. The back shows off both modes for the figure, as well as the multilingual bio. Interestingly, the sidebar says that Groove was made to combine into Skyrain rather than Defensor, an interesting choice. But since the other Protectobots have been off the shelf for a few months, they seem to have had no choice. But enough of the box. Let us unleash Groove and review him properly. And here is Deluxe Groove out of box and in his vehicle mode. As a motorcycle, Groove comes across as very large. Somehow knowing the size of the Legends version makes the Deluxe version seem even bigger than the other Deluxes. It's true that as a bike, Groove is ridiculously out of proportion next to, say, a tank or a jet plane, or even a Lamborghini. But the Transformers have a long history of having figures that mass form in weird and silly ways, broadsides. As this was made from a Takara-created figure, Groove has a lot going for it. It has excellent detailing and a pleasing color scheme with bright white, black trim, and a number of silver highlights. The paintwork seems better on Groove than many of the other Combiner Wars Deluxes. It makes a convincing police bike, see, police, and harkens back well to his Generation 1 stylings. The wheels spin well and hold together well. When transforming the figure, the rear wheel must be rotated so that the pegs lock together. Otherwise, the wheel halves will spin independently of each other. There is a hinged kickstand that can be lowered so that Groove can stand on his own as a bicycle. The drawbacks are that the robot arms, while they do flush well below the bicycle, are still badly exposed, with the hands sticking out quite visibly. The rear of the bike has a kind of boxy look to it, and so does the engine. It is not nearly as sleek a bike as other bike Transformers, such as Transformers Prime RC, or even Animated Prowl, but it can be forgiven, since Groove also has to jam in the engineering to turn into a giant arm or a leg. The Groove figure comes with a ridiculously long instruction booklet. It also comes with a collectible trading card. It comes with the standard Combiner Wars ridiculous hand-foot accessory, and also comes with 2 gun accessories, which can be plugged into any one of a number of places on the figure. In bike mode, the guns only fit well into the peg holes at the rear wheel. You could try to squeeze them into the hands at the base, but if you can figure a way to make that look good, let me know. This peg hole at the top is the only place for weapon storage of the hand-foot accessory in bike mode, and you can see for yourself how well that works. To transform Groove from a cycle to a robot, the wheel assembly will unpeg from these slots here. There is a rotating joint here which will allow you to spin the wheel assembly backwards. After that, unpeg the arms from these slots in the chest. Rotate them forward, square them down, and rotate so that the elbows are pointing up. Unfold this section backwards, and then tilt the wheel assembly so that it lies flush to the back. Rotate the combiner port assembly for the dramatic head reveal. Groove's legs also transform similarly to many of the combiner line in that they split in half and that the thighs unfold from a very large cavity in the center of the shins. Rotate each peg of the wheel assembly so that these slots are pointing forwards. You will see these small tabs inside the shins, which should peg into those slots neatly and hold the legs firmly together. Split the legs apart. The legs are held together with a tab here and a slot here, which click together fairly solidly. Be careful when separating them. This small tab may break at some point in the future. With the legs separated, the tire will be separated as well. Fold the tires so that they are lying flush against the sides of the legs. After that, it is simply a matter of rotating the waist assembly so that the legs are pointed forwards, and the transformation is complete. And here is Deluxe Groove in robot mode. As a robot, the paint applications are rock solid for Groove. The silver highlights in particular set off the arms and legs quite well. Groove shares the same solid articulation as most of the Combiner Wars Deluxes. The head will rotate 360 degrees, but does not seem to tilt much because of this elongated chin. They included some rather solid light piping, but weakened it somewhat by painting over the eyes with red. The arms will rotate fully on ball-socketed joints, as well as extending up and down at the shoulders as part of the transformation, so he can square his shoulders. The elbows will bend 90 degrees, and the hands won't rotate or bend at all. There is full 360-degree waist rotation. The upper thighs are ball-socketed, and will pivot and swivel a great deal, coupled with an upper thigh rotation. The knees have a 90-degree bend, and while there are no feet, the base of the shins have protrusions and spurs, which give Deluxe Groove a high degree of stability on whatever leg poses you manage to create for him. The gun accessories will plug into either one of Deluxe Groove's hands. There is also a peg on the side of the gun so that you can mount them in his hands John Woo style. Can I hold my gun sideways, Chief? It just looks so cool. As a leg unit, Groove is perhaps at his weakest. The arms are still visible at the sides, although they do peg neatly into some tabs. But the only way that you can expose those tabs to plug the arms in is to rotate the bike backwards so that it's jutting out past the heel. Groove also suffers similarly to Rook, in that his front wheel assembly becomes a giant shin cap that juts out so far it becomes a distraction. He might then pair well with Rook as a leg, but the whole reason for releasing Groove as a deluxe was so the people who don't like Rook could kick him to the curb. As an arm, Groove is beefy, but not too beefy. Almost all the deluxes wind up with shoulder pads of some kind when they become arms, and so Groove is not entirely out of place, with the wheel assembly as his shoulder pad. He functions just as well as an arm as any of the deluxe combiners with the same articulation, and looks just as silly with this giant oven mitt hand accessory. And here is Defensor fully assembled with Groove as both an arm and a chest plate. I know that in Generation 1 First Aid was his arm, but frankly First Aid doesn't look good as an arm. So he and Groove have switched places in Death's personal configuration. Looking good, Defensor, even if you are made of Protectobots. For size comparisons, here is Deluxe Groove being ridden by Spider-Gwen. Here he is being ridden by Reveal the Shield Wreck-Gar, and by Transformers Animated Prowl. Groove actually scales well enough as a bike that he can be ridden by a number of 6-inch figures from almost any collection line, so long as they have decent leg articulation. The pluses of Protectobot Groove include an innovative new mold, excellent paint applications, solid articulation, and good synergy with the rest of the Protecto-Weak team. The negative aspects are few. His front wheel assembly becomes noticeable kibble as a robot, an arm, or leg, and he forces you to either ditch Legends Groove or put up with the metaphysical dichotomy of having two grooves on the same combiner. But that doesn't leave you with much to complain about, and so Deluxe Groove earns 9 out of 10 deaths. Pee-wee's Big Adventure indeed.
If you refuse me, honey, you lose me, then you'll be left alone, oh baby, tell them all, and tell me I'm your own.